After being just one game away from making our first playoff appearance of this series, it's time for another offseason. And before that, we're of course going to take a look kind of at where everyone ended up at the end of the year and see whether or not we thought they played up to expectations, how their development went, etc., etc. Let's go roster by roster here, starting with the Major League squad. Rafael Murillo lost one power versus righties, but has really developed in probably the best lefty hitter in all of baseball. Fielding starting to get into the high 70s. He's probably, I would say, he might be maxed out. We drafted him with only a 92 potential. I assume with how good he's played to start, it's gone up. But at 95 overall, there's not much left to improve. So this will pretty much be the player that we get, I would imagine, for the remainder of the series. There will be some ups and downs throughout that. But this was his first full season with less than 30 homers. Only missed it by one. Also career low in RBIs. The one place where Rafael Murillo got a lot better this year was that walk to strikeout ratio. He was around a 2-to-1 previous to this, but he almost had the same number here. Much better discipline from him. Kept that on base percentage the same as last year, despite not hitting a whole 40 points less. Here, slug was down to where he was kind of his rookie year. OPS over 900. You know, calling this a down season is just showing you how dominant this player has been. He does have actually a higher WAR, mostly better to being a bit better of a fielder. Still, his rookie season was actually his best fielding here, but there you see the 0.9 walks per strikeout, just better, so much better, twice as good as he's been in the past. So that gives you hope that he can rebound once again next season. Isolated power, pretty much the same as his rookie year. His most at-bats per home run, that's to be expected with him having his career low in home runs. Still got doubles in the 30s. Elite offensive player. Hopefully he can bounce back and have more of a 2027 season next year, because I mean, if Rafael Murillo had his maybe worst year as a pro and we were one game away from the playoffs, imagine what happens if he gets back and improves on what he's done. Solace here, in terms of his upgrades, really good hitter against lefties for some reason. I don't know why, but elite fielder as well for him. He had 19 homers on the year, just hasn't been able to duplicate that 20 plus home run season he had his first year. His worst year average wise, worst year on base percentage, worst year slugging, worst year OPS. Just not a great offensive year for Solace. And he hasn't yet, you know, returned value on that massive contract. I mean, we're paying him $30 million, over $30 million this year, $30 million next year. Paid him over $30 million last year. I'm really hoping that Solace can have a breakout offensive campaign, because if he can, that's another thing that's going to push us into the playoffs. For that WAR, though, was better than his first season, but that last year was still his best season for both these top players. Chase Dollander here, really good across the board improvements here. +5 home runs per 9 is beautiful, gets him into the 70s, and he just needs one more walks per 9 to get everything into the 70s for his per 9s, and maybe one more year of pitcher clutch could help as well. Overall, a bit of an improvement, just, you know, a 0.08 whip improvements, a point, you know, what is that, 1.8 improvement in his ERA, just a little bit better. But so far, a really good start to the career, I think, for Chase, and the patience has paid off with him. He's become somebody that we can count on to be a good pitcher. Got that 9 strikeouts per 9, you know, a strikeout per inning number there. 3.17 is not bad for walks per 9. 101 for home runs per 9 is really good for a Coors pitcher. If you can stay at or around or under 1, then I'm totally happy with him. So Chase Dollander looking good. Do we try to sign him to a contract extension here? Thought about doing it mid-season, just didn't like the value. Didn't think I was getting enough of a discount on these renewable and arbitration years to pay past them, but could be somebody we look to give a long-term deal in the offseason just because he has been good at the MLB level now with a pretty decent sample size of 400 innings. He's right around a 4 ERA, 1.38 whip. Not great numbers, but pretty dang good if you ask me. Clemente Herrera in September here ended up with a 2.69 average, 3 home runs, got +10 power versus righties this year, which is absolutely awesome. +6 contact versus righties as well. Really developed as a hitter against righties, which I think is going to be key for him becoming not just a platoon player, but an everyday player. Thought he might start his career as a lefty-only player, but nah, with that kind of development against righties this year, he's playing every day for us next year. Really excited to see if he can make some awesome plays in the outfield with that excellent arm strength. And excited for his future. 7.63 OPS, I think, is a really good start for his first month. 3 homers. Absolutely love it. Excited to see what he does in his first full season next time around. Michael Copec, +7 home runs per 9 for him, +4 walks per 9. Had his best year with Colorado by a long shot. Coming off a 5 ERA, 1.5 whip. Reduces his whip by 15 points. Reduces his ERA a ton. 3 more quality starts. Went from a 0.8 WAR to a 2.9. Definitely somebody that we're going to be bringing back for next year as we, wait for some more of our pitchers to come up. Brto, not a great start here for him at the MLB level, but we saw his first start and the potential that he showed. I'm still very confident that with a bigger sample size, he'll be looking a lot better. Just gave up 7 home runs in 33 innings pitched. Certainly not good enough, but still excited for his future. Showed me enough that I'm still banking on this guy being the future ace of this team. Kyle Brown had a much better season than he did his rookie year. Ended up with a +9 contact versus lefties season, getting him near into the 90s. Still definitely a player that hits better against lefties and righties, but that average went way up. His OPS went over a full point up, so you gotta love that for him. 14 home runs, I think, is a solid number for what you would expect for him. 3.2 WAR coming off a 0.4 WAR, so much improved for Kyle Brown. Let's see if he can continue that deeper into his career. Another guy with a major breakout season, ended up actually leading the team in home runs, Zach Veen. I thought after last season that it just wasn't going to happen for Zach. Coming off, he only had 14 home runs, 2.27 average, in a full season. Just wasn't good enough. He absolutely tore it up this year, nearing 100 RBIs as well, 841 OPS. From a less than a 1 WAR to a 3.2. Definitely has entered the mix as somebody that could be somebody long-term. Yeah, I think we have a lot of outfielders on our team, but some of them have infield flexibility. It's going to be tough. We're starting to see that some of these guys are going to make it tough to be replaced. Zach Veen being one of them. Wasn't counting on him being a long-term piece, but he's thrown his hat in the ring for sure. Santian, +8 home runs per 9 this year. Another guy who was great. Ended up with 55 saves to only 4 blown saves for us this year. Was an absolute monster closer. 2.03 ERA, 1.13 whip. And one of the reasons I was not in any hurry to bring up Rich Walls was because of how great of a season Tony Santian was having for us. And yeah, I'm going to bring him back. Even if he might not keep the closer role forever, but a 0.44 home runs per 9 is sick under a 3 FIP. Just an awesome season for Santian. Definitely a reason that we got a lot of those wins. Santian was doing an excellent job closing out these games for us. Sterling Thompson ends the season on a hot streak, and actually the numbers don't look as bad as they did for most of the season, but just a guy, I'm not sure how he fits in the long-term plans. He's just, I don't know if he's ever going to be as good enough offensive player. I mean, his contact versus righties is in the 80s. We tried to have him bat second this year. just wasn't good enough average-wise. Now, OPS above 700, he's not terrible, you know. He's a solid offensive player. And, you know, if you can be solid offensively and really good defensively, that is often good enough to give you a role. But on this team where we have so much competition and the position player spots coming up, might mean he's not here for very long unless he can have, you know, a Zach Veen or a Kyle Brown-like breakout season next year for us. You know, I wouldn't say never. Ryan Bliss probably played his last year for the team now. He's into arbitration. Don't think we're gonna pick that up for him. He played his role as a temporary guy for us while we were waiting for some guys to come up. Neil Dorsey in 33 innings, a 3.21 ERA on a 1.25 WHIP. Going up across the board, you love to see these ratings increases and a lot of hype. 3 home runs, batted over 300 in his, 97 at-bats this year. So over 800 OPS. I'm extremely excited. I know everyone in the comments is as well to see what this guy can do in his rookie year. Some expectations are maybe a little bit too high for this player, but honestly, he's got a chance to meet those expectations, even though they are a little bit wild because he is that talented. I think, you know, there's been a lot of talk about him being a reliever ever since we kind of discovered him. I think he's proven that he's an MLB caliber starting pitcher in his first couple of seasons as a professional. And there's not enough good you could say about Neil Dorsey, but we've got to see it. The real question with him is, do we offer him the long-term contract today? I know it's a small sample size of what we've seen, but I'm just so incredibly confident that this player is going to return value on whatever kind of contract that we give him. You know, a two-way player, even if we gave him $35 million a year, which I'm not going to do, by the way. I mean, if you can get a good pitcher and an insanely good bat for that kind of money, that's a 2-for-1 deal. $35 million is arguably too little to pay a player like that. So, you know, we have had a little bit of a risk. You know, we offered Solace that contract before seeing it, and it still hasn't really come to fruition for him yet offensively. Do we take that risk again with Dorsey? We'll have to find out. Jelly, okay numbers here. I think he might be on his way out, as much as I love Jelly the Giant and all the puns you can come up with whenever he's on the mound. It just not quite a very good season from him. Andrew Moore was excellent last year. Really could not replicate it this year. He did have a smaller sample size compared to last year, but just, I mean, doubled his ERA, insanely higher whip this year, ended up being a negative WAR player. I think because he's shown that he can be good for us in the past, even a solid year 2 years ago, I think we give him one more year. And if he has another bad year, then he's gone. But I think we retain him for, like I said, one more year. Omar Figueroa, 288 average with 22 home runs. This guy's good. And when I drafted him, it was really to be a temporary first baseman. But if he can continue to play well, then I'm going to keep playing him. That's the thing with baseball. You know, I might not go all the time off of the overalls and the potentials. I'm going off who's going to perform. And Omar Figueroa performed this year. I mean, technically he did have 4 less homers, but he improved his average by 30 points. His OPS improved quite a bit as well. So, yeah, I want power at first base, of course. I want 30 home runs a season. Can Figueroa get that for you? I'm not sure, but I like what we've seen so far from him early on in his career. Smeltzer had his worst year with the squad, although his whip was actually his best. It's just his worst ERA season. So, honestly, pretty similar. We know what Smeltzer is. I think we might bring him back for one final year while we're waiting for more of our pitchers to come up. Kind of just depends on some needs here. But where was I? Here we go. Let's go down. Yohan Blanco, not great. Temporary solution. Dennis Santana, we've tried him 2 different times now. It just has not worked with him. As fun as it is to have a 99 velocity, 99 break pitcher, Dennis Santana just doesn't really work for us. Lozano, one of the bigger disappointments, I'd say, in our major league organization this year. Just Really big increase to his whip. Again, doubled his ERA plus. Still ended up somehow being a positive WAR pitcher. But I think the ratings are going to be good, and we're just going to stick with them because, A, he's still young and under contract for quite some time. But also, I just think reliever year to year can be a fickle thing, and hopefully he can bounce back next year for us. Jordan Beck in a full-time role. His last season probably as a full-time player for us. You got to think, because our outfield next year is going to be probably Cerny, Herrera, and Veen in an everyday capacity. And then Brian Doe, you never know when he's going to come up to replace Cerny. So outfield looking a little bit crowded for us. So that's the status of our major league roster. Time to look at our final season stats for our minor league system here, which of course we have to look at before the end of the season. So here we are. Let's go first through our AAA roster, then our AA. Brian Doe ends up 256 with 18 homers. His contacts developed in a nice way. Plus 10 overall, I think, is really good. Rate for that, 6 against righties, 4 against lefties. Power does go down against righties. Still going to be at 70 for next season, though, so that will be good. All of his play skills are in the 50s now. You love to see it. His arm strength also into the 50s. Accuracy still in the 40s, but not terrible by any means. I think this guy is getting to the point where he's very MLB ready. I think just due to the fact that we do want to just kind of spread out our rookie seasons, try to get as many picks as we can throughout the franchise. He might just end up with one more season in the minor leagues because of that, but I can't remember if he'll be Rule 5 eligible this year or if he has one more year. If he's, going to be Rule 5 eligible, we're obviously going to add him to the 40-man roster, and then at that rate, he gets a spring training invite automatically. But it's taken a little bit for Doe to develop, but I think he's finally at a development point where I think if we needed him to, he could play MLB baseball for us. Unger up to a 79 overall. Another guy who I think going to be somebody who's a year away. I think, with one more year of development, a lot of these per nines into the 60s. That's going to be a player that's ready to pitch for us come next September. Colorado native, of course, been a dream of his all his life to pitch at Coors Field, and that dream will be a reality before too much longer. Rich Walsh here, somebody I thought about bringing up this season, but could be, part of a crop of really good relievers that have a chance to join the squad next year. 7 saves, 2 blown saves. Of course, spent a lot of the year at AA instead. Herb Reyes didn't quite have the season that we're accustomed to him having in this series. His hits per nine is into the 40s though, which is good. You could say that comfortably, but it's good for where he started, but it still has plenty of development to go. At age 23, I think he's going to be Rule 5 eligible pretty soon, so we're going to have to put him on the 40-man roster. But still, I think even if we have to put him on the 40-man roster, we're going to use at least 1, if not 2 of the options to continue to try to develop that hits per nine before he's ready. If he has one more year before we have to add him to the 40-man, that would be even better. Johnny Brennan, looking pretty good, up to a 74 overall. A lot of these per nines in the 50s, high 50s at least. Home runs per nine into, it's getting up there, but still needs more development. Once walks per nine gets into the 70s, though, he might have a chance to be able to pitch at the major league levels. A lot of the guys are pretty close. Got kind of a new generation of pitching that's coming up here pretty quickly. Jeff Ramirez ended up finishing the season in AAA just because he wasn't pitching super well, and it wasn't terrible. It was actually an improvement ERA wise from his last season, but whip at 1.5. Decided to give him some run at AAA. Strikeouts per nine -5 kind of sucks, and it honestly probably ends his chances at being an actual closer, but still a guy that's going to be a reliever for us. McCracken here, not the best season. We ended up thinking he could be ready for the show this year. Had him at AAA instead, and he certainly needed some more development. Walks per nine, I think with one more year could get that into the 60s and he'll be ready. And that's kind of it for the high caliber prospects in AAA. Now down to AA. Antonio Hernandez, unfortunately, not the best end of the year, but he does get +6 hits per 9, which is really good. Needed that one to come up a bit this year. A couple of other ratings into the 60s now. He's getting to the point where he should definitely be in AAA next year at 73 overall. And Rocha, it's been a while. I feel like this is probably the least attention we paid to a first round pick in this franchise, just kind of a nature of the point of the franchise that we're in. But Rocha here, really good season against the lefties. He's going to be able to hit both against righties and lefties now, whereas he kind of came out as a guy who's kind of a righty only hitter, so that's a good development for him as well. But probably a guy that you call up to AAA. 285, 16 homers is certainly a good enough season to call up to AAA for next year. Benji Avalos only ends up hitting 240. Needed some development against the lefties, much like we needed with Rocha, and he got some for sure. Still going to be a better hitter against righties, absolutely. Needed those play skills to come up. We got 5, 3, and 4 in those play skills, so that's good development. Already a good fielder. Another guy, maybe one more year at AA to try to work on the play skills, I would think for him. Ralph Gilmore, really good year at AA, 287 with a 114 whip. And over again, we're kind of seeing that these guys with the low strikeouts per 9 do sim pretty well for us. And then when we watch them, they actually get decent strikeouts. So I think, if you want a pitcher that's going to develop well, maybe not put as much priority on strikeouts per 9 unless you're of course looking for a closer. Then strikeouts are going to be important, and they're also really fun to watch. Definitely was planning on watching him this year because I wanted to see that palm ball, but that'll be a guy we'll have to make sure we end up watching next year for sure. Gregorio Dominguez up to a 67 overall and got +6 power versus righties, which is pretty nice, getting him into the mid 40s. So it looks like he might eventually become at least a decent power hitter, fielding all into the high 40s as well, except for reaction, which is still in the 30s. He's somebody that I don't know if he ever plays a role for us, but some good development. Chris Benoit, pretty good year of development for him as well. Currently still on the injured list. And that's kind of it here. We did end up letting Suzuki come in here for the end of the season. He played 3 games and was actually really good in them. So he'll play the entire season at AA next year. And then we have one guy at Class A, Raymond Park. Probably bring him back up to AA next year. And that'll wrap up kind of the season of development we got from the minor league system. I think we've got some guys, especially these top 3 here at AAA, that are really leaning towards being ready for making the jump up to the show. Brewers would end up winning the 2028 World Series over the Rangers, so not the Dodgers. You got to love that at least. In terms of retirements, we did have a couple of pitchers and a shortstop, so we'll have to make sure we fill those spots if necessary. Now we've got a full staff, so no moves to make on the staff this year. And then we do have some decisions to make here with some free agents. I do want to offer Michael Copec again. I think he's played certainly well enough. Now he's going to ask for a big contract because of it, but I think we definitely want him back. Now there might be actually some decent competition for him. Not guaranteed if we're only going to offer him a 1-year deal, especially because we probably can't offer him the ace role either. But we have the money to offer him a really big 1-year deal. Like, I'll offer you $13 million. Okay, so we don't need to do that. His interest is maxed out at that part right there. So we'll just give you there. 11.5 is the max interest he'll take on a 1-year deal. So we'll see if he signs that. That's a pretty high interest bar there. But 85 overall coming off the season he did, I would not be surprised if the CPU outbids us for this player. We might be losing a good quality pitcher. Devin Smeltzer, always been a decent pitcher for us. If we take a look at what next year's pitching looks like, Dolander we're going to have. Copec said maybe Jose Barreto will be there for sure. I think Smeltzer, you still want him. We're going to have Dorsey there for sure. Blanco, Criswell, but those guys could be more kind of long relief. So if you talk about guys you want in your starting rotation that are 100% set in stone, it's Dollander, Brito, and Dorsey. That's really it. You're hoping Copec signs, but even if he does, that fifth spot's still open, and I think the best candidate for it is going to be Devin Smeltzer. You could also keep Jelly here, but they're honestly coming off pretty similar seasons. We got 4.46 and 1.3. I mean, Smeltzer's whip was way better. We also have a larger sample size of him being solid for our team. Jelly, I think, is a little bit more fun, though. Also, will probably be cheaper. Let's see what he wants in a contract. For a 1-year deal, he'd be wanting $5.7 million. So do you keep Smeltzer at $5.7 million at 33 years old? Or do you go for Jelly probably for, let's see, he is coming off, it won't show us what he was paid last season. I think it's probably a couple million for Jelly. That's going to be a tough decision. I think I might actually go for Jelly just for the money saving option. And I think both are pretty similar as just, fifth starter options. So Smeltzer, it's been a long run. I actually think he did a really good job. Was honestly our best pitcher for the first couple of years when we were waiting for some guys to come up. But I think with the guys that are coming up, he does throw lefty though. That might actually change my mind here between he and Jelly, because Jelly's a righty, right? Yeah, that changed my mind. I do want a lefty. He's kind of the only lefty we have. So I'm going to offer him a 1 year, and he's definitely going to be in the rotation. So I'm just going to offer him a really favorable deal. I would definitely want him back. Maybe we can get away with like a 5.5 instead. But there you go. These other guys, I think it's time to move on. Diego Castillo. Actually, Diego Castillo had a really good year for us. I'll bring him back for 1 more year as well, or try to. 2.1 there. So we're going to offer 3 of our 5. We're going to offer the pitchers. We're going to let the position players go. And that's it for exclusive free agency. So I have now either released or offered everybody a contract. The one exception to that is actually Sean Jelly. I want to see if we re-sign Smeltzer. If we do, then I'll release Jelly. If we don't, then I'll offer Jelly a contract. But other than that, not a ton of big-time moves made. I decided ultimately not to offer Chase Dollander the big-time contract. Once again, just like it was in the season, was not getting very much of a discount, I feel like, in the first 4 years of this to make a 5th or 6th year worth it for me. If we have to pay him more money, in his age 32 season, or I guess it's actually 31. For some reason, I thought it was going to be 32. Maybe should have offered him the 5-year deal. But again, just I feel like 1 or 2 years of discount in the future to get, a premium on these other years. I just couldn't do it. And so he is going to continue to be signing, on a year-by-year basis. Will be a arbitration player next year. The one big contract we are offering is I have decided to offer an absolute bag to Neil Dorsey. 15 years, $405 million. That comes out to $27 million a year. And I am front loading it. So that, we look at this surplus, we're still going to have $40 million after if, everyone accepts, which, I imagine they will. And there you have it. The one final note I want to talk about at this part of the episode is this is an absolutely stacked free agent class. Look at all these guys that are 90 overall or better in this free agency class. That's got to be at least 15, maybe 20 guys. So we could see some major shakeup in the league. It looks like Acuna is probably going back to the Braves, but other than that, like Gunnar Henderson, Nolan Jones, can he finally get the heck out of our division? I would love that. If he goes to the Dodgers, I'll be so pissed. But there you have it. Let's see what happens in this very exciting offseason. Garrett Whitlock is the first to sign. That is a reliever for a 2-year deal to Kansas City, who just won their division. Bryce Elder, who we release, is claimed off of waivers. Logan O'Hoppe from the Angels to the Mariners on a 5-year deal. Anthony Volpe is going to the division rival Padres. Maybe that means Nolan Jones is exiting. Hopefully, Kyle Bradish to the Yankees. Let's see what's happening here. So we did get Neil Dorsey to sign. He is online for 15 seasons with this team, getting him into his mid-30s. And yes, I know it's going to be hard for him to, come up with positive value in 2029 and 2020 and 2030 on this contract. But after that, I feel like we're going to be getting a ton of value for this player as he continues to grow. He's going to be an insane player. And again, we're getting 2 players for this money, really. If you think about it, we're getting a really good batter. We're also getting a guy who can be a starter in a rotation. For that money, it is absolutely worth it, if you ask me. And really the only contract we're signing. So if you look at now our payroll, budget here, we've got Solace, Murillo, and Dorsey. These are the 3 guys that you locked up long term. And we could, maybe we could have decided to pay a guy like Kyle Brown off of a breakout season, something like that. But really, I'm only wanting to do this for the very, very top of the line guys in our organization. I feel like if you offer these massive contracts to everybody, that's when it can really bite you in the butt long term. So I'm only giving it to the guys, especially because, even Ethan Solace might end up not working out for us with this, but the deal is done. So hopefully we just got to hope that he turns it around and becomes a really good offensive player. But, Dorsey, Murillo's already, returning value on that contract. Dorsey, I'm just so confident that he will. I was also very confident Solace would as well. And of course, he still has plenty of years. The dude's 22 to continue to provide value on that contract. Everyone else, we're going to have to see it first. I think candidates to have this in the future, if Brto has some good seasons, I could see us trying to lock him up really long term. I think Clemente Herrera could eventually get a contract like this. Maybe not 15 years just because he's a little bit older. The guys that, we signed to the 15-year deals are guys that were 19 and 20 when they made, when they had their rookie seasons, So that's why we offer him 15. But for a guy like Herrera, it'd be probably more like a 10 or something like that. So there's a few candidates, but I think the biggest next candidates would be guys like Brto and maybe Herrera as well. But let's continue on here with the offseason. We've got Cerny and Moore have not accepted their offers yet, and then Brennan and Doe, I think they'll both accept that. So let's just continue on here. Let's make sure we're fine with losing these players in the Rule 5 draft, and I think I am. I don't want to lose them, but I'm fine to do it. So this is the last year to offer arbitration. So we got Copec back and we got Smeltzer back, so we will not be offering arbitration to Jelly. It was a fun little 2-year run we had with Sean, but he is no longer going to be on the team. The 5th starter will be Devin Smeltzer for next year. Wanted to have at least one lefty in the lineup somewhere for us. Logan Webb is going from one division team to another. Now, the Diamondbacks at this point in the franchise actually are coming off a worse season than the Giants. But I think we know that the upside of the Diamondbacks is probably higher than the Giants at this point, although the Giants do have a lot of players they've drafted playing well for them. Alexis Diaz, closer to the Brewers. And then Edward Cabrera from the Marlins to the Braves. George Kirby. A lot of guys signing on this same day to the Angels. Still continuing here. Yordan Alvarez. Only an 89 overall at this point in this franchise. 39 home runs this year. Glad he didn't come to our division. Yankees get another pitcher. That was so many players signing in one day. I don't think I've ever had that many players sign the same day before. And Spencer Steer to the Tigers. Francisco Alvarez to the Brewers. Gunnar Henderson to the division rival Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks looking to get a lot better. My goodness. Okay. Everybody signed from our team. Gotta love it. So we have... I should probably go out and get one more corner infielder and maybe a catcher in free agency. Although I think we might be fine without them. So it's time to see where we're going to pick in the upcoming draft. Gabriel Moreno to the Guardians. Riley Green to the Rays. Still no Nolan Jones signing. He's got a bunch of full offers. Doesn't look like he's going in the division. Hallelujah. Torkelson. Doesn't look like he's going in the division. Another team could... Probably whoever loses out on Nolan Jones, somebody's going to send Torkelson a big offer. O'Neal Cruz. Surprised he's not getting more interest. How old is he? 30. Absolutely mashes righties. So still some pretty big dominoes to fall here in the offseason, despite the fact that we've seen already some big-time signings in this postseason period. I think we have, the 17th odds in the lottery, so I would be shocked if we don't pick 17th. This year, there'll be the first time we picked outside of the top 10 in this entire series, and there you have it. We picked 17. Everybody got the exact pick they were owed. That is insane. I've never seen that before. Kind of crazy. Luis Campusano to the Mets. Let me just quickly, before we get to the Rule 5 draft, I think we have everybody we need for the Major League roster. 6 starters. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we could use one bullpen arm. Or we could call up Cole McCracken. Wasn't very good at AAA last year, but I think we might just call up Cole McCracken, which means we'll just be skipping the Rule 5 draft this year. This will be the first year in the franchise that we will not take any players in the Rule 5 draft. Probably should have at least looked to see if there was a sick reliever available. Like there's an 87 potential reliever that just went. Who's this guy? Matt Dobson. He's only 64 overall though, so I probably wouldn't have taken him. Anybody else that we would have maybe taken? Wouldn't have taken that guy. Wouldn't have taken that guy. Wouldn't have taken that guy. So probably fine to sit this one out. Let's continue on with the offseason here. Nolan Jones to the Red Sox. Sayonara, dude. Happy to have him out of the division. That trade has haunted us now for 30 episodes, 30 some odd episodes. And happy to have him gone. He's just signed a 10-year deal. Ezequiel Tovar. Another guy leaving the Padres. The Padres did get themselves a good shortstop in... the guy from the Yankees that's blanking my name right. His name's blanking in my mind right now. But they did lose a couple of players. Gary Carpenter. Spencer Torkelson to the Braves. Josh Lau to... So, luckily a lot of these guys are not going in our division. O'Neal Cruz to the Yankees. Berger to the White Sox. Flaherty to the Tigers. Garrett to the Athletics. Brown to the Twins. Ketel Marte to the White Sox. Anthony Santander. So the Diamondbacks will be much improved next year. And then the Dodgers lose a pitcher. Dean Kramer to the Padres. Royce Lewis to the Braves. Man, the Braves. Already such a good team. And they got some major additions this offseason. How do they have all that money? Byron Buxton to the Orioles. Definitely not going to take that offer. Probably too soon to be talking about trade 3 in general here in the franchise, but I think that'll pretty much do it. Ryan Bliss is the best player available. We shouldn't have let him go. I think the fact that he's still available is a good sign that it was perfectly fine for us to let him go. But that's what the team will be looking like here for the upcoming season. I don't think I'm going to be doing a live stream here of the spring training this season. I just don't think anybody's really playing for their jobs. The guys who are going to be rookies, they're playing no matter what. Like Herrera, Brto, and Dorsey, they're making it even if they have a tough spring. So I will see you guys for opening day next. A pretty exciting offseason, I think. The Diamondbacks and the Braves both getting a lot better is, well, it's going to be interesting. It's going to make this NL tougher in the future, and I'm excited for it. But that's all I've got for the episode. We'll be back soon to kick off a brand new season, and I'll see you then. Go Rockies!